Okay. Hi Judy. Thank you very much for doing this with me. Okay, I've got 6 questions for you. First of all, what do you do in the film industry?
I am a producer, and what that means is, do you want me to explain it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So a producer, the best way of describing it is we're first in, last out, which essentially means that a producer follows a project from the choosing of the material and the team to raising the finance to putting all of that together, filming it, post-producing it, marketing it, distributing it, doing all the press. And so the lifespan of a film begins and ends with the producer.
And what does your job contribute to an overall project?
In a way, the producer is the backstop. So what that means is that we, in the first instance, have to identify the story that we want to tell. Sometimes that comes via a writer-director, sometimes it's a book or an article or just an idea. And then we have to raise the development money in order to get the thing written, put the team together. We have to also choose stories that we know will sell, essentially. And that's going to depend on the team you put together around it. So if it's a writer-director, that's what we call an auteur. They have a particular point of view of the world. It's their vision of the world, and very often films are financed based on their vision. Then there are, I would say, genre films, horror, crime, action-adventure, that perhaps depend less on the director and more on the market it's aimed at.
Okay.
Okay?
That makes sense. Did you always want to be a producer, or was there something you started out thinking you wanted to do and then life just changed it for you?
That's a really good question. I think I always wanted to be a producer.
Okay, that's interesting. So you made it?
Well, I think what happened was when I went to university, I watched a lot of films. And maybe I, at the time, didn't have the confidence to be a director. But I knew how to make things, I knew how to put things together. And so my early experience was I came up through production rather than directing. And at the time there weren't very many women directors at all, so maybe there was just a natural progression into producing rather than directing.
How did you get to where you are now? How did you what was the key points in your life where you pushed you further into your career?
The pathway. Well, just doing it really.
Just doing it?
Well, I think the thing is...
just got to get yourself out there.
You do have to get yourself out there, but what I did do was, the first thing I did was I studied film in terms of film theory, which is very different from practical film. So I watched a lot of films and I began to understand how they were put together and the sort of language of film, and I loved cinema. And then I worked in music videos, and it was a very regulated industry then, with a lot of unions in it. And so when I started, the only way I could get in, really, if I didn't want to be a secretary to someone, was I just had to say, I'm going to make a film. And so because I'd worked in a lot of music videos and commercials, and I went to America, I just made the decision that I was going to put a film together. So I had a sort of understanding of a set. I understood what a director did. And I understood what a writer did, and I had a sort of vision of the type of film that I wanted to get made. But that was about it. I had no idea of financing. I had no idea of the entire process, the marketing, the distribution, the sales.
Does that just come from experience?
In a way. You can sort of study it a bit, but it's in the doing of it that you learn. Really.
That sounds good. If you go back, what would you do different in your career to where you got to where you are now?
That's a really good question as well. What would I do differently? I think that's a hard one. I'm not sure I would do anything differently, because I think I have had experience of lots and lots and lots of different aspects of narrative. So I've worked, I've done a bit in theatre, I've done a lot in television, and I've done a lot in film. And so I kind of understand the nature of different formats, which I think is it's a really good thing to know. If I could do anything again, it may be that I would have stuck to making films
Oh yeah. Okay. Did you? Because you kind of like switched to TV, didn't you?
Well, I did because of family.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
because actually it's very demanding making films, and it's very difficult to balance those two things out.
Okay.
And television, because it's almost a bigger industry in this country, can accommodate women more. And so that was good. So I don't really regret. I'm not sure I would do anything differently, but I think that I might have had a bit more courage in terms of really going for it in terms of film.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, and lastly, if you had any advice to give to people who want to get into the film industry, what would you tell them?
I think there are two things: persistence, okay, and showing up. The most valuable thing you can be in film and TV is reliable. And if you are reliable and people get to trust you, they will give you the breaks.
That's good.
Absolutely. But the most important thing is, I think talent's probably about third on the list, but if you don't persist, you don't get there. You have to persist.
Got it. That's good advice. Okay, thank you very much, Judy, for doing this interview.
Thanks, Dan.
It's brilliant. Okay.
Thank you.